You're listening to the PRO Media Network, the next level in entertainment.
It's time for the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys, telling you everything you need to know about the Saints, Pelicans, and a whole lot more.
Welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guy. And we have intense, entertaining, educating, enlightening sport talk. Of course, from your favorite sports family. I'm Big Q, and I'd like to thank y'all for joining us today on the Sports Coma, bringing an episode 211. That's right, 211 on the podcast, coming in with you. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Saints, of course, recapping the last couple of days of training camp. It's day 17 and day 18 on the camp. Also, we'll be getting into some of the news and notes of the day dealing with the Saints, as some moves have been making, a couple interesting, some new players on the team. We're going to come at you with some interesting news for the Saints and our way of delivering Saint content to you. First of all, like I say, I'm going to say it again. I'd like to thank y'all for joining the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guy. DC is not available today, so big ups to him. So you guys are just going to be rocking with me today. A big shout out to a lot of new listeners that's listening to the Sports Coma for the first time, and a lot of new subscribers. Thank you guys for giving us a shot and signing up to join the fam. Thank you very much. And to a lot of those old diehard Sport Coma and PRO Media Network people, thank y'all also for continuing to spread around and show love to us as well. Moving forward into the show, we're going to get right on to it. Like I said, we're going to be talking about some of the signings and releasings for the last couple of days dealing with the Saints. Of course, the Saints introduced some new defensive backs into the fold. We'll talk about those guys today on the show. And then we'll talk about the Saints. Of course, they released, the most notable is, of course, the releasing of Davante Harris. Now, Davante Harris, by all accounts, y'all remember, Davante had a series of boneheaded plays in the preseason game against Jacksonville. And ultimately, like I said, I watched the game 3 times, if not more than that. Through me breaking the tape down, I've seen Sean Payton shake his head 3 times during that game, and 2 of those 3 was on Davante Harris. As he had 2 boneheaded plays. Well, ultimately, it culminated with him being released. They even give him an opportunity to make it up in the second preseason game. This just says hasta la vista to you, and they released him. He's out of here, so we'll get into that later on. Also, we'll talk about a lot of the positioning battles that's going on in camp as well. Some side notes, stories. You know, the kick return, punt return game is one of the more heated battles in camp thus far. Really, it is. Brandon Tate, the guy the Saints brought in with Michael Floyd. But a lot of people kind of was looking at Michael Floyd because he has the bigger name, as you will, than Brandon Tate. But really, Brandon Tate's role on this team, he could end up making a team where Michael Floyd wouldn't. So think about that for a second. We'll break that down. What Sean Payton said about Michael Floyd and what he needs to do coming into camp. And we'll go right into days 17 and 18 breakdown. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. The Saints signed a few defensive backs, notably a few defensive backs, after releasing Davante Harris. Now, of course, I think the Saints probably seen enough of Davante Harris and said, you know what, we've seen enough. And consequently, he was picked up by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so good luck with that. And I wish he starts, too. I wish he becomes the number 1 starting cornerback over there, because we're going to have a field day when he on the field, no doubt about it. Saints then released him, and also they released Trevor Darling. Now, Darling was a long shot to make the team. The offensive lineman was a long shot to make the team. The Saints did release him and signed Marcus Williams. That's right, another Marcus Williams. Not the safety, but another Marcus Williams. This is the cornerback, Marcus Williams, that spent a lot of time with the Jets and also with the Texans. Now, he spent 4 years with the Jets. He did play with Double D, so Double D is familiar with Marcus Williams. To have a guy who was up there with the Jets during his time. And, of course, last year, he split time between Houston and the Jets. Now, his career, he's played in 49 games for combined total tackles of 114 total tackles, and he has 2.5 sacks. Now, mostly we look at interceptions when it comes down to it. But Marcus Williams, this guy, who, by the way, is a 4-year vet, he has 10 interceptions, 10 interceptions for his career. So that's not bad for a 4-year guy. Now, he's from North Dakota State in his 5th year here, and the Saints hoping to see what this man has. He's 5'11", about 196 pounds. Now, he did have some news. They threw these guys right in the thick of the camp, and we'll give you some of that during the camp breakdown. They signed another defensive back who's mostly a safety, Mr. Robert Nelson. Now, Robert Nelson his college was Arizona State. He's a guy that's been in the league for 4 years. Another 4-year defensive back. He's a little smallish for a safety at 5'9", 175 pounds, out of Arizona State. Now, he played with 4 teams during his 4 years in the NFL, starting with Cleveland, then Arizona, then Houston, then the Jets last year, and this year now he's picking on coming into it with the Saints. So if we take a look at some of the things that he did as far as his career accomplishments goes, is he has a total of 24 combined tackles, 1 interception. So he has 1 interception. Not much of an accomplishment for Robert Nelson, but by all accounts, he's looking like a guy to kind of provide depth. I don't know about this sign. But the Saints have a bevy of cornerbacks. Adding another Marcus Williams and Robert Nelson to the fold, perhaps they see the need to have a better safety play behind those 3 known safeties, Marcus Williams, Von Bell, and of course Kurt Coleman. What do you have behind those guys if you was to lose one of those guys? Who could readily step up? Remember, Raphael Bush is not on the team anymore. So who could be that Raphael Bush? Who could be that 4th safety? Is it Chris Banjo? Gerard Niesman? Is it him, perhaps? I don't know. It's a battle. Maybe that's something that we're not really paying attention to. But the Saints are definitely in search of a 4th safety. It might not be Chris Banjo. He does make plays, but could he be that Raphael Bush type of player that the Saints can bring in to kind of, if something was to happen to those 3 safeties, those core 3 safeties that we like to circulate. So interesting pickups from the Saints nonetheless. Appears to be depth signings at this point, but we'll just monitor it and keep an eye out on it. Into the kick return battle. And of course, the Saints kick returning battle was a pretty good one between Bo Scott and the rookie Bo Scott, the running back, and wide receiver Brandon Tate, who is a veteran who's been kick returning and punt returning since he got in the league. So he's very familiar with it. Bo Scott did it during his college years at La Tech. And, of course, they threw another guy into the fold who will be kick returning and punt returning too, and Natrell Jameson. I remember he did that in college at Nebraska, and he was pretty good at it, by the way. But the thing about Natrell Jameson that a lot of people need to be aware of is he's blazingly fast. He has a knack for it. So to say that Natrell, along with Bo Scott and Brandon Tate, listen, so this is severely just a better altogether upgrade at the kick return and punt return due to say both these guys were basically, these are new Saints players who are leading the kick return, punt return battle, over a veteran like Tommy Lee Lewis, who is injured, by the way. So, what does that mean? As it seems right now, Brandon Tate is a little bit ahead of Bo Scott, according to some of the stuff that I've been following. Some of my observations of watching them in camp and watching them during game situations. It appears to me that Brandon Tate is a little ahead of Bo Scott, but is still a very tight race. But regardless of who wins, we all win as Saints fans, because we all know that the special teams been needing much to be desired. So I'm just happy to see that the Saints finally putting the emphasis on improving special teams, especially at the kick return and punt return roles. All right, moving on. Michael Floyd came in with Brandon Tate. Remember, Michael Floyd was one of those guys who was sought after when he first came in. He was supposed to be the complement to the great Larry Fitzgerald out in Arizona. Ultimately, he had some off-field issues, and Arizona said, man, we don't want that. So he ended up leaving. He ultimately played with a few more teams. The last team he was with was the Minnesota Vikings, which is his hometown team. And, of course, the Vikings didn't re-sign him. The Saints once they waived Brandon Coleman, they say, hey, let's take a look at this guy, and then brought him and kick returner Brandon Tate into the fold. Now, Michael Floyd has a lot of talent, about 6'3", around in there, about 3 inches short of what 6'6" Brandon Coleman was, but he does a lot of the same things. And if my take is, he's a better wide receiver overall than Brandon Coleman was, and he'll serve as a good red zone wide receiver. He's about 6'3", 220-ish or something like that, but Sean Payton wants him to get down. He wants his weight to drop. He said, quote, that he's a little too heavy, but he likes the fact that he is working on losing that weight. So that's a compliment outside of his weight, but not much else is happening behind Michael Floyd. You know, there's a lot of wide receivers in there, and a lot of people consider Michael Floyd as a long shot to make the team. But if Michael Floyd could show that he has a penchant of making catches in the red zone, he might stick and stay with the Saints. He might very well do, if he can show that ability, if he can drop that weight, and if he can recapture at least half of what he was, or at least 75% of what he represented when he played for Arizona. We might have something here. Going into training camp news, day 17, of course, Taysom Hill is making plays. He's making things happen in training camp. Now, he's coming off a fantastic game, by the way, against the Jaguars. Now, he was an 8 or 9 thing, but he also ran a handful of times for about 51 yards. He even had a score. It's interesting to see a quarterback that has the ability to scramble and move around like Taysom Hill is. If the offensive line played better, we probably would have been able to see him throw deep balls and do a little bit better. But the offensive line was so pathetic in protection when he was out there that he had to run some of the time. So he threw a series of multiple throws in which one of them landed to one of our favorite guys in Sports Coma follower, Garrett Griffin, who listens to the show. He caught a fade over Kurt Coleman in the end zone for a TD. So big ups to Garrett Griffin as he makes it. Of course, Deion Yelda and Dan Arnold struggling in blocking in practice. Deion Yelda, to me, doesn't seem ready. He has the body and build, but the mind is showing that he's not ready. Dan Arnold making catches, making plays. He looked decent in the Jaguar game, but he's struggling in blocking. So both those guys got to get better, especially Dan Arnold. But that'll do it for this segment. We'll come back and talk more about day 17 and 18 of training camp. You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the Guy. Stay with us.
What's up, Sports World? The PRO Media Network is on a mission to reach 10,000 subscribers. So besides our regular programs like the Sports Coma with Big Q and the Guys, the Pelican Post Game Report, Rapid Fire TSC, and others, we will be expanding out and offering other content like movie, anime, and gaming reviews for your entertainment. So if you enjoy our content, please donate at our Patreon page. Also subscribe, comment, and share. And help the PRO Media Network reach 10,000 subs. Peace.
What's up, Sports World? This Big Q from the Sports Coma with Big Q and the Guys. Talking to you about the website, theposhlifestyle.com. That's right, poshlifestyle.com. A great website where you can get great products at great prices. They sell organic herbs, vitamins, supplements, water filters for your home, EMF and cell phone radiation protection, healing magnetics and healing crystals, personal protection devices like cell phones, stun guns, and mace sprays, organic deodorants, shampoos, soaps, toothpaste, and more. They also sell 10A grade Brazilian hair. 10A music is available now. All kind of the latest downloadable mixtapes. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to theposhlifestyle.com. That's the Posh Lifestyle, life spelled with a Y, LYFD style.com. Put in the Sports Coma for the 10% discount on your purchase. It's a win-win. So get your mind and body right with the Posh Lifestyle.
Follow the Sports Coma on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the Guys on the PRO Media Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. We're talking about the Saints, man. Talking about day 17, 18, Saints training camp 2018 rolling along, man. After the first preseason game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, some Saints are starting to stand out, as it were, during the camp as we moving forward, man. Some of the things that I noticed, especially in the running game of the Saints. Mark Ingram, of course, he'll be out for 4 games because of those performance enhancers, PEDs, whatever you want to call them. Somebody need to take his place. Of course, we got a few people out there. The Saints do have more than their share of veteran running backs who are vying for that job for those 4 weeks that Mark Ingram is out behind Alvin Kamara. Of course, a lot of people thought Travis West would be that guy. He struggled mightily. Shane Vereen, with his abilities, he hasn't looked that well. And, of course, there's the underdog guy in Jonathan Williams, who's really stepping up. He had a really nice handful of runs in the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the more spectacular ones of the game was when he was able to break out of that pile, which to me just seemed like absolutely amazing how he was able to. I don't know. I still can't figure out how the hell he got out of that pile and was able to keep running. That game made him about 13 yards. But Jonathan Williams is building upon that, and day 17 was able to have a few more good runs as he's starting to separate himself. Strong runner, about 6 feet, 220-something odd pounds. I think he looks to be it might be heavier than that. Statistics, the stats saying that much. I think he looks a little heavier than that. But he runs with power. It's not an angry runner like Mike Bell, one of my favorite Saint runners. Angry power runner who, how dare you touch me type of runner. He's not that, but he's a guy that does run powerful. He's a north-south runner, and he is you don't bring him down easily. I mean, that's the type of people, running backs that I love to have, because whether you have a good offensive line or not, a guy that can break tackles at the line of scrimmage and finish off smaller defensive backs, to me, that's a terrific runner. And Jonathan Williams appears to be separating himself from the pack when it comes down to those running backs. So big ups to Jonathan Williams, who was brought on by the Saints from Buffalo last year, didn't get many reps. He was basically buried on the depth chart, not so much this year as he's showing what he can do when given the opportunity. Also, during day 17, Natrell Jamerson, he filled in for P.J. Williams, who had those bruised ribs. When P.J. made that open field tackle and landed awkwardly, he still suffered from that bruised rib injury from day 17 as Natrell Jamerson, his Florida buddy, took his spot. Now, Natrell Jamerson, man, has the speed, the size, the intelligence. He played safety in college, and he also has some ability to play. He definitely will learn the cornerback position. He was listed on the unofficial Saints depth chart ahead of a lot of other guys that I really liked, including Arthur Moulette. But Natrell Jamerson separating himself from the rest of the pack, and obviously the Saints see what I see in Natrell Jamerson, and he can be a guy that can perform at multitude of different levels, including the special teams. And he replaced him in some of these drills. Speaking of him, a lot of people on the show love Arthur Moulette, and we do too. He's a hometown guy. We're from New Orleans. He's from New Orleans. He's trying to make the team. Now, he did have a great play against Brandon Tate when he turned around and broke up what would have been an end zone. It would have been a touchdown. But he made a terrific play. And Arthur Moulette, to me, this time around, you look at the confidence in his play. He knows he has picked up the scheme, and he's got a grasp of what he needs to do. He has the speed. He has the ability to kind of contort himself to make plays. He has a feel for where the ball is. I mean, he's a guy that you better watch out for. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but still in all, Arthur Moulette is a guy that's known to make plays. And he's making plays. Look like to me, I think Arthur Moulette will, if he keep doing what he's doing, I think he definitely will make this team. Possibly the active roster, not so much as the practice squad. I mean, that's a given, but I'm really looking at Arthur Moulette hopefully to make the team. But he just keep doing what he's doing, he probably will. Demario Davis, Double D himself, continues to break up passes in coverage. He broke up one headed to Ben Watson. And this was the thing. Demario Davis, when it's all said and done, people going to look back at the 2018-2019 season and say, my God, Demario Davis was the best signing. And that's saying a lot because we had some good signings this year. But to say Demario Davis would have outperformed this contract, he would have given the Saints the linebacker that they've been searching for the last 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, my goodness, the guy can cover, he can protect against the run, he sees it all, and then the most important thing about Demario Davis that I really like is that he has endurance and he doesn't miss any games. That's something that our linebackers have suffered from for some times, but not Demario Davis. He brings that stability, and I'm really appreciatory that he's here. So, but let's take a look at some of the defensive tackles. Now, when they signed some of these guys, not a toot our own horn, but Taylor Stallworth has been a guy who's looked good. He looked good in the game against the Jags. He's been having a strong camp. He had a play which he batted Tom Savage pass up in the end, and Trey Hendrickson was nimble enough to pick it off. So that was a nice play by Taylor Stallworth, who continues to be a hellspawn on the interior of the defensive line. So a lot of battles, a lot of people not talking about because of the obvious fact, of course, the kick return battle, but the defensive, and then a lot of people not talking about the fourth safety battle, which is imperative to have that because the Saints employ that 3 safety look. We need a fourth safety that's very solid who can come in and do similar things. And then, of course, that I guess you could say that 4th defensive tackle spot is something that it's a battle going on for that 4th defensive tackle spot. Taylor Stallworth is in the midst of it, along with guys like Devereaux Lawrence, who's really stepping out, the former Auburn product. So Alvin Kamara during this day also had a fumble after catching a pass from Drew Brees. Of course, he doesn't make many mistakes, but he had a fumble during this game. And, of course, the second-team defense didn't allow the offense to complete any passes in the 7-on-7 drill. So the second-team defense continue to be very solid, and hopefully some of those guys can inspire the first team to kind of get their act together because they look like crap against Jacksonville, and hopefully they can get better. But big ups to the second team for doing what they're doing. Going to day 18 in the Saints training camp. These are the guys that didn't practice. Marcus Davenport didn't practice. Cameron Meredith, Michael Human, Tommy Lee Lewis, and Mitchell Lowen were out of day 18 practice. Of course, Cameron Tom did come back after having a chest injury. Now, I jokingly said that the Saints lead the NFL in Camerons. Cameron Jordan, Cameron Tom, Cameron Moore, Cameron Meredith, but the Cameron Tom is back. He's a guy that the Saints see as a guy that plays multiple positions. He could play either guard position, and he can either even play a little of center. So they're really up on Cameron Tom, and he has come a long way. So I would love to see what he do. Hopefully we could see somebody else plug in. If Andrews Peter's not ready to go, we got some news on him later on in the podcast we'll give you. But if Andrews is not there, hopefully Cameron Tom or can actually step up and play, because Josh Larebius looks terrible out there. Iron Mike Thomas is making toe tapping catches, one-hand dives, and all this kind of stuff, and he beat Ken Crawley before Milwaukee, which Ken Crawley, to his credit, has been getting better, but man, I mean, wow. But it's not too many cornerbacks that's going to stop Iron Mike Thomas, but he is just, because you're used to seeing it from him, but he is greatness personified. He knows he's going to be a Hall of Famer, and in his first couple of seasons, and he continues on that trend. He is going to be when it's all said and done, he's going to break every wide receiver record the Saints ever set, touchdowns, everything. This guy is going to break it all and then set them again. I'm just saying, he's just terrific. He continues to show up big, and what else could you say about Mike Thomas, right? Also, Austin Carr. Now, Austin Carr was a guy that the Saints picked up from the New England Patriots. Remember last year, they kind of shelved him because they liked what he could do in the slot. I'm not going to call a man like a Wes Welker, but he's in that Danny Amendola role type of player who moves well, got pretty decent speed, but kind of finds himself in that slot position. The Saints like this kid, and the fact that they did bring him on and kind of shelve him. Now, he doesn't play special teams, which could be a knock against him, but he is a solid slot man. And he's showing up in camp during day 18. He really made a few plays in there, and he was with the first team. So that's saying a lot about Austin Carr, and to see what he can do, because he's one of those wide receivers who's a veteran that we're not talking much about because he doesn't stand out like a Cameron Meredith or a Traquan Smith. Those guys are big play receivers. Not saying Austin's not, but Austin knows what he is. He's a slot man, and he can be a pretty damn good one. But it's interesting to see if he can keep his level of production up, keep playing very solidly to make this team. So Justin Hardy had a interception on Tom Savage, which is good. Because like I mentioned on the last podcast, we watched the Jacksonville Jaguars game, and Justin Hardy just I mean, he's an excellent special teams guy, but when it comes down to anything else that's not special teams, my goodness, he just doesn't look comfortable out there. And he had an interception during practice with Tom Savage. Be interesting to see if the Saints do keep Justin Hardy around, because obviously the trick to make the team is to do two things. If you're not a starter, you have to be able to do two things. You're going to have to either play special teams or do something else. That's why a guy like Taysom Hill says, listen, I'll play special teams. Hell, I'll even be the guy that holds the football when the kicker kicks the ball. I mean, he's trying to wear as many hats as he possibly can to stick on the team, because personnel is telling him, hey, if you're not a starter, you got to play special teams, and then you have to play whatever position that you play well. Justin Hardy has to get better at that defensive back position. He didn't look too good against the Jaguars, but there's still 3 more games left for him to show what he can do. But as far as like coverage corners or balanced cornerbacks, Justin Hardy doesn't really do it for me in terms of covering. But when it comes down to other things, like the special teams, he's fine, but he's got to do more. We're also talking about Brandon Tate. Brandon Tate caught a few passes, a touchdown from Tom Savage, by the way. That lends us right into what we was talking about just a moment ago about doing more than one thing if you're not starting. Now, Brandon Tate, of course, competing for the kick return job on special teams, but he's a wide receiver. If he can make it as a wide receiver on the team, which he caught this touchdown from Michael Savage, that's bad news if you're Tommy Lee Lewis. I'm just saying, because he's going to, if he takes your job in the special teams on the kick return role, and then he makes the roster and he can still catch passes, what do we need you for? And I'm pretty sure the Saints are there are 4 wide receivers that's going to make the team. And if they keep 6 guys, let's say they keep 6 guys, you got all these wide receivers competing for the 2 remaining spots. So I'm just saying, if you are not a starter, you're gonna have to do something else. And Brandon Tate looks like he might be doing that very thing. Then of course they had entertaining dummy race. Offensive lineman Will Clapp and defensive lineman, both rookies, Henry Mondu, had a race to catch the tackling dummy. Of course, Mondu ended up catching the dummy. He won the race to the chagrin of Will Clapp, but that's an interesting way to kind of keep things spicy in camp. I'm always intrigued when you got a guy like Sean Payton who's able to do those little things like that to keep those guys fresh in camp, to keep the competition alive. I got to give Sean Payton a lot of credit for that. He is terrific and excellent in finding people to come in to inspire the team and doing these little exercises, coming up with these little slogans. I mean, him and his team are excellent. They're terrific in finding ways to keep camp fresh, and so that camp doesn't go stale and guys get bored. I mean, he's just terrific at that. He's gotten better over the years, no doubt about it. Andrews Pete is also working to come back. We can tie Andrews Pete news here. In day 18, he was seen working out to the instruction of Dan Roshaw, and as Josh Laribas fills in on his first team. Now, please hurry back, Andrews. Please hurry back. Please, because Josh Laribas, oh my goodness, Josh Laribas. I'm not going to say too much about old Josh Laribas. I'm just going to have to leave him alone, but hopefully he can play better than what he's been playing, man. And then also, Natrell Jameson added to the kick return game. I mentioned that the new defensive back, Marcus Williams, not to be confused with Minnesota Miracle Marcus Williams. I hate to say that, man, but I'm trying to distinguish the two. I guess I could say safety versus cornerback. He knocked down the ball, hit it to Ted Ginn Jr., but then maybe a play later, Ted Ginn then burns Justin Hardy for a one-handed back shoulder catch for, I think, led for a touchdown. So Justin Hardy on the wrong side of a good play. I'm just saying, man, there's a lot of good cornerbacks in the camp this year. And Justin Hardy, we know you could play special teams, but you're going to have to step up and play better at the DB position. Or guys like Arthur Millette, Natrell Jameson, Cameron Moore, Lyndon Stevens, and now you add guys like Marcus Williams to the bunch. It doesn't bode well for you. Step your game up, brother. And, of course, Double D, once again, he batted down passes headed to Deion Yell. The guy's a terrific coverage back. What could I say about Demario Davis that I haven't been saying? Terrific signing. He'll outplay his contract. His best ability to me is his availability, not missing any games, know how to play the pass, know how to play the run. The guy's a balanced linebacker. Hopefully the Saints plug him at the right position. To me, would be middle linebacker. Let him wear that hat and let him run that defense, man. Chris Banjo broke up a pass, had it to Garrett Griffin, one of our favorite guys here at the Sports Coma. Chris Banjo, who's a special team ace, broke up a pass. So that's good because Chris Banjo knows that he's trying to make he plays special teams well. They know that. But can he play that fourth safety position if something were to happen to those other guys? That's the major question. We need that fourth safety. Who is that guy? That's the question. And, of course, new safety Robert Nelson lost the battle with Keith Kirkwood, despite the fact that he was grabbing the man's jersey the whole way, and Keith Kirkwood still gave him the wood. So at the end of the day, Keith Kirkwood's another guy to watch out for. They got a lot of fantastic talent at the wide receiver room, just to be quite honest with you. Keith Kirkwood is a guy, he looked good in the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's been having a solid camp with the Saints. He has pretty decent speed and size and whatnot, but this guy's really been showing up and showing out. The guy's having a pretty solid camp, and I wonder if the Saints think about keeping Keith Kirkwood around, man, because he's a young wide receiver that's really making strides. Guy, he has good speed, decent size, and a guy know what he's doing out there. So that's going to do it, man, for day 17-18 news on the Sports Coma. Thank you guys for chiming in and watching, or listening rather, to the show today. As always, if you enjoy the show, please feel free to donate at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/the PRO Media Network. Go over there right now. Sign up. You can donate one time, or you can sign up to be a monthly contributor, in which you will get shows at least a day before other people do. So you can get the Sports Coma a day ahead of time. Go take a look at the options, man, and come back and holler at us. Also, subscribe to our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter pages, and all that other social media networks that we have. You can look down in the description section below and sign up to follow the Sports Coma via social media. And as always, thanks for listening today on the show. Peace.
Forget ESPN or Fox. Get straight sports talk from the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys.
Thank you for listening to the Pro Media Network, who provides hours and hours of free edutainment to you and yours. If you are benefiting positively from our content, please donate to help us grow our platform by going to www.patreon.com/the Pro Media Network. That's www.patreon.com/the Pro Media Network, and support the true independent artists.
In today's world, children are bombarded with negativity on television, online, and at school. Our kids need to have a positive outlook on life and the world around them. I want to share with you a valuable resource you can use to bring positivity into your child's life. It's the new book, 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image, from author and dad G.J. Barabino. This is a simple guide loaded with wonderful and inspirational affirmations designed to uplift young people's spirits. This positive and powerful children affirmational is chock full and loaded with wonderful inspirational sayings that will lift your child's self-image to whole new levels through the awesome power of spoken word. 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image, from author and dad G.J. Barabino. Available on Amazon. Order a copy for yourself, your child's teachers, or anyone you know with children. 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image. Order your copy today.